Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I have a special video for you. You have been asking me for a long time to share some stories about school lockdowns, and I finally managed to find 3 true stories that are absolutely terrifying. These stories are not mine, but they were sent to me by some of my subscribers who experienced them firsthand. So without further ado, let's get into the first story. This story takes place in a calculus class on a Friday afternoon. It was the last period of the day, and everyone was looking forward to spring break, which was starting the next week. The class was pretty relaxed, since they didn't have any tests or homework to worry about. The teacher was a cool guy who liked to play games with his students on a website called Sporkle. They were having fun guessing different brand logos, when suddenly, the mood changed drastically. The dean's voice came over the loudspeaker, sounding very nervous and scared. He said that this was not a drill, and that all the teachers had to lock their doors and go into lockdown mode immediately. The whole class froze in shock as they felt a wave of fear wash over them. The teacher quickly turned off the lights and told everyone to move to the back corner of the room, away from the windows and the door. They all obeyed silently, wondering what was going on. They sat in the dark for about 2 minutes, when they noticed that the usual humming noise that came from a panel in the back of the room had stopped. That meant that the school had cut off all the power, which was a sign that the situation was very serious. They looked at each other with worried expressions, hoping that everything would be okay. A few more minutes passed when they heard a loud and terrifying scream coming from the hallway. It was a man's voice, and he sounded like he was in a lot of pain and anger. He was yelling things like, "I'll kill all of you," and "You'll pay for what you did to me." 2 girls in the class started crying, which made the rest of the students even more scared. As the screaming got closer to their classroom, they realized that the man was banging on the lockers as he walked, making a lot of noise. The man reached their classroom door and started pounding on it with his fists. He was shouting, open up," and trying to break in. The teacher told everyone to be quiet and stay calm, but it was hard to do that when they felt like their lives were in danger. One of the girls who was crying couldn't take it anymore, and she screamed, "No, please, leave us alone." The man heard her and got even more angry. He started kicking the door harder and saying, "I hear you in there. I'm coming for you." 2 more girls joined the first one in crying, and some of the boys tried to comfort them. It felt like an eternity that the man was trying to get in, but eventually he gave up and moved on. He continued his rampage down the hall, screaming like a madman, until his voice faded away. About 10 minutes later, which felt like half an hour, the dean came back on the loudspeaker. He sounded more calm and composed, and he explained what had happened. He said that a mentally unstable person had entered the building and attacked the woman who worked at the front desk. She managed to escape and run outside, where she called the police. The staff didn't know if the man had a weapon or not, so they decided to put the school on lockdown as a precaution. He said that the staff had searched all the hallways and classrooms, and they couldn't find the man anywhere. He said that he must have left the building or hidden somewhere. He said that the police were on their way, and that they would handle the situation. He told the teachers to resume teaching, but to keep their doors locked and not to let any students out for any reason. He apologized for the inconvenience and the scare, and thanked everyone for their cooperation. The most disturbing part of the story, however, is what happened later that night. One of the janitors who was working the night shift found the man sleeping in one of the storage closets near the back end of the school. He was wearing a dirty and torn coat, and he had a backpack with him. The janitor was curious, and he opened the backpack. Inside, he found a .44 Magnum revolver, loaded and ready to fire. The janitor panicked and ran to call the police. He must have made some noise, because the man woke up and saw him. He grabbed his gun and ran out of the closet. By the time the police arrived, the man was gone. He had escaped through a back door and disappeared into the night. No one knows where he went or what he wanted to do with the gun. My entire class, as far as I know, still has nightmares about that day. We don't know if the man was ever caught or if he's still out there, but we hope that he gets the help that he needs and that he never comes back to our school. That was the first story. I hope you enjoyed it and that it didn't scare you too much. The next story is also about a school lockdown, but this one involves a different kind of threat. This story takes place at a middle school, where they have 2 lunch periods. The first lunch period is for all the 6th graders and some of the 7th graders. The second lunch period is for the rest of the 7th graders and all the 8th graders. The lockdown happened in the beginning of October, on a rainy and gloomy day. The narrator of this story was in the first lunch period, and he was about to witness something very shocking. He was sitting at a table with his friends, eating his lunch and chatting. He didn't pay much attention to the weather outside or the noise that came from it. He thought it was just thunder, until he heard 4 loud booms that sounded different from the usual thunder. They were more like explosions, and they made the whole building shake. The entire lunch crowd started screaming, and he realized that something was very wrong. He looked outside, and he saw smoke rising from the houses across the street from the school. He wondered what was happening, when the campus security came in and started yelling at everyone to go into the multi-purpose room. They said that it was an emergency, and that they had to follow their instructions. The kids who were in line buying lunch had to throw out their food and join the others. He and his friends got up from their table and ran to the multi-purpose room with the rest of the students. The multi-purpose room was a large hall that was used for various events and activities. It had a stage, a projector, a sound system, and a back wall that was made of glass. It was usually a nice place to be, but not on that day. When he and his friends entered the room, they saw that the campus security was covering the glass wall with curtains, and that there were adults guarding every exit. They wondered what was going on, and why they had to hide. His friend Eric was very curious, and he decided to ask one of the adults what was happening. He came back a few minutes later, and he looked very pale and scared. He told them what he had learned, and they couldn't believe it. He said that there was a man who lived in one of the houses across the street from the school. He was mentally disabled, and he had some serious problems. He was being evicted from his house, and he didn't want to leave. He had barricaded himself inside his house, and he had threatened to kill himself and anyone who tried to make him leave. He had also said that he had a bomb, and that he would blow up his house and the whole neighborhood if anyone came near him. He had been walking around outside the school before the lockdown, watching the kids in a creepy way. Eric said that the man was also a registered sex offender, which made the situation even worse. They were stuck in the multi-purpose room for a whole hour, while the police tried to negotiate with the man and defuse the situation. They missed 2 periods of classes, and they were very bored and scared. After the whole thing was settled, they were escorted to their classrooms one by one. They had to walk past the glass wall, and they saw the damage that the man had done. He had blown up his house and 3 other houses next to it. There was debris and fire everywhere, and the smell of smoke was very strong. They saw the police and the firefighters working on the scene, and they heard that the man had died in the explosion. He had also injured some of his neighbors, who were taken to the hospital. They felt sorry for them, and they hoped that they would recover. He later found out that the man lived next to his friend Brandy, who told him a chilling story about him. She said that on the previous Halloween, she had seen the man at his window, cutting his arm with a knife and writing in his own blood on the window. He had written, "Don't come here or I'll kill you." She said that she thought it was just a Halloween prank, but after this horrific incident, she realized that the man was serious and dangerous.